Good morning, Aaron. Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you. Going to spend some time talking to you about you and your business. Going to spend some time with my good friend, the one and only Tony Powers. He's got a great radio program there in the Carolinas and in Georgia, and he's part of a growing radio network called italkus.com, and he's always a welcome part of this program. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Kevin. How are you this morning?
Happy New Year. I think it's the first time you and I have chatted this New Year. Glad to get you back on, as always. So I thought, usually we kind of bounce around. People need to, put on their safety belt when they listen to us because we cover a lot of territory fast. There is a lot to cover. Where would you like to start? I think one of the things was the almost coup, which actually was better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I thought it was pretty valiant, actually.
Well, yeah, I did too. Only it fell a little bit short, and I was very disappointed with some of our congressmen that we just sent, especially the freshmen who went up there with the idea that they were going to be conservative and they were going to stand strong with the conservative wing of the party. But unfortunately, some of them, I guess they get to Washington and they get those little committees dangled in front of them, and they say, well, we'll just go along with the establishment. So you had 25 brave Republicans. We needed 4 more. Too bad some of those didn't stand up.
Yep, it is too bad. Now we have to wait. From my understanding, is we have to wait another 2 years, unless something happens that leads to ethic charges or something like that on Boehner. Which, man, I'd love for that to happen. But I hate to wish that kind of ill on someone. But frankly, I think he acts unethical. This is a guy who's supposed to be the leader of the GOP, and he heavily punishes those that are his allies who are trying to save his party while essentially sleeping with the president.
Well, yeah, it's amazing that the wing of the party that actually gave him the gavel back in 2010, the Tea Party movement is, they sent 60 new congressmen up there, and this time around, 13 new congressmen, and it's like he doesn't listen to the very people who gave him the gavel to start with. And yesterday, with that, his speech, it was a great speech on the floor of the House where he talked about we're going to stand for the Constitution and we're going to fight back against the president's overreach. And he named off the 22 times that the president said he couldn't do what he did with executive amnesty. Yet they gave it all away back in November and December with the omnibus bill. So that was just a show vote yesterday, and unfortunately, nothing is going to come of it.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. I'm not very optimistic about it at all. And a lot of that, and people were wondering. I went to lunch with a friend of mine who's the chairman of the Republican Party, not of Harris County, but one of the neighboring ones. And, he wondered if that nice, strong rhetoric that we rarely hear from Boehner had a lot to do with that near miss, and I don't know. He always seems to know how to talk tough when he has to, and then he becomes Monty Hall, let's make a deal behind closed doors, or starts weeping because someone touched him in some profound way, and which they really shouldn't be doing that up there anyway. So I don't know.
Well, he knows that bill has very little chance of getting through the Senate. The Democrats have enough to filibuster it. And even if they don't, and somehow it does pass the Senate, they don't have the votes to override a presidential veto. So it's just, again, I think it was just all for show, and to try to make the conservatives think that they're actually doing something up there when they're actually not.
Yep, they're not. And I remain convinced, and you and I talked about this often, and I think you agree, that, this mandate, so-called mandate in November was not a mandate for Republicans. It was a mandate against Obama. I really believe that.
Well, it certainly was, and it was a mandate against his agenda. It was a mandate against his executive overreach with all these executive orders or executive memos or whatever you want to call them. He claims he's had the least of any president, of any modern president, but when you start counting the memos, which actually have the same, they carry the same weight of law as an executive order does, it's like he has been very prolific with that pen and that phone, and unfortunately the Republicans just haven't figured out how to stop him, and I wonder sometimes if they really want to stop him.
Yeah, I do too. I sincerely doubt it. I think that it's a lot of business as usual, a lot of get-along gang, and people who are really just too ambitious. And they have long-term career agendas, and I'm not even a term limits advocate. You and I have talked about that as well. I think that's treating a symptom and not the problem. That particular treatment of the symptom is only going to make politicians more ambitious, not less ambitious. But that's the problem, though, is ambition.
Well, yeah, and I think it's up to the voters. I mean, we really need to start taking a little more responsibility for who we send up there. And unfortunately, we got Gruber this time around. That's what we're getting again with Boehner is a lot of talk, no action. And, of course, he goes back to his buddies at the Chamber of Crony Capitalism and says, yeah, we put up a good show fight against that amnesty, but there you go. Here's your cheap labor for you. And screw the middle class.
Yeah, 25 votes. When you think about it, how many new freshmen were elected? Do you know?
Well, there were 13 new Republicans that got sent up there. So yeah, you had 13, and of those 13, all we needed was 4 more to vote with the conservatives, and we would have been able to get a second round. And if they had gone to a second round, I think Boehner would have been in trouble. Oh yeah,
he would have been in big trouble. I think so. And if nothing else, it certainly would have been an even bigger wake-up call, wouldn't it have been?
Oh, yeah, it sure would have. But unfortunately, I think we're going to see 2 years of the last 2 years of Obama are going to be, well, it's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be pretty. And I think by waving that white flag that McConnell waved over the lame duck session when he said we won't shut down the government, they just basically gave away their only constitutional prerogative to stop Obama, and that's the power of the purse. So I think we're in for a rough ride the next 2 years.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I find it interesting now because, there's this perception that the Republicans have become in charge, at least to a certain degree, in a way that the American people haven't seen in a while. I think I find the timing of the raising of the interest rates, the first time since 2006, to be interesting because, I'm not, first of all, obviously, we need to do a lot more of that, and we need to line up monetary policy with reality. And, it continues to make an eloquent case for a true gold standard. But I think it's interesting. I almost see a little bit of setting up the GOP for the fall guy with the interest rates.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's not supposed to be any coordination between the administration and the Fed, but somehow I think Janet Yellen might be listening to what is coming out of the White House. And again, we, just like Supreme Court judges, these nominees for the Fed, they're partisan. And I think now in these days, you can't get away from partisan politics in Washington, D.C. And I think she definitely is trying to do what she can to help Obama and to make the Democrats and make the Republicans look bad.
I think you're absolutely right. And spending time with my good friend Tony Powers. And Tony, what's up for your show in 2015?
Well, I'm concerned these days about Al Qaeda and ISIS and a president that's afraid to call this threat that we have what it actually is. That's a real big concern. Glad to see gas prices going down. That's a plus. Maybe that'll help the economy turn around a little bit. Of course, Obama will get credit for that, even though he's done everything he can and continues to do everything he can to stop as much drilling and gas and oil production as he can. But despite him, we're seeing those prices come down. That's leaving more money in people's pockets, and we may see a little bit of a turnaround here. So I'm kind of excited about the prospects for the economy, but I'm fearful about the terrorist threat we face and the fact that we got a president that can't even name it.
Yeah, and we didn't have enough time to get into the whole Paris story, and we need to get you on more often. I tell you, I think people underestimate how big the ripple effect on those gas prices are going to be, and if it keeps up for a long time, because not only does it mean you're going from point A to point B cheaper, the products you buy at the grocery store are getting there cheaper, and the products that are the containers that your products are in at the grocery store are going to get cheaper, and thanks to competition and free enterprise, we're going to see that leading to lower prices. And all of that's going to go as positives to Barack Obama. And a lot of that, and of course they're going to call that deflation because they don't know what economics means. Economics is only deflation and inflation are measures of the amount of money in the economic system. They have nothing to do with how high prices are or not. But this is what happens when economists try to lie to people. We have hyperinflation in spite of what the prices look like. It's only because of law and demand that they're not as high as they really should be.
Oh yeah, and we will see those prices going up. But as you pointed out, if the gas prices remain low, we could see that ripple effect right through the economy. So maybe that'll be a counterbalance to what Yellen's going to do with the interest rate. So, we can only hope. But it does look like we're in for a little bit of growth here.
Yeah.
And if people get out there and feel more confident and they got a few more dollars in their pocket and they spend it, you'll see it actually creating jobs. And maybe you'll see a bit of a turnaround here, which, of course, will, as you pointed out, benefit Obama. They'll blame the Republicans for the high interest rates, but they'll take credit for the economy.
No question about it. Tony Powers, you can learn more about him at italkus.com. And I wish we could keep you longer today, but I have to run. But we're going to get you back on again soon. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Keep up the good fight. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here, including this interview, can be found over there at usdailyreview.com. This is The Price of Business.
She ain't got no money, her clothes